Ladies and gentlemen, Ghostbusters are back, and busting makes me feel real good. I'm talking about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. This is the sequel follow up from Ghostbusters Afterlife. So, a lot of people either one really just loved Afterlife and felt like it was just the greatest things about nostalgia. There's a lot of love there. A lot of people loved the new character Phoebe, but then some people did not. Some people kind of had their own discretions and said, this is kind of like okay, but this wasn't what I'm used to. And I think that the thing that I'll say for me personally, this was an amazing, entertaining ride. They did some things in this one that I was very surprised of. I really appreciated kind of how they handled the feeling of scope and real threat from a world standpoint. Like, not to say they haven't done that before, but it's a difference when you're seeing very open, the very first opening, like people getting killed and things starting to happen. Like it builds tension. And the other part about it is that there's also tension going on within the group. Like the Spengler family, of course, now they're, continuing the destiny they're supposed to befall, but now like there's opposition. There are things where people are saying, well, no, maybe we don't need you guys, maybe there is collateral damage that you guys cannot correct. And then a character like Phoebe, who is the genius there, who brought everybody together, who did save the world, is also dealing with conflict within herself. So those different dynamics, I think, make for a very interesting place. But I am going to kind of go through everything. So the things that I really thought that they did a really good job was is inclusion of new characters. Kamal Ali is a new character that some kind of a way they fit him in just perfectly, because he should not fit. When you really kind of unpack who Kamal's character is and how they utilize him in this film, it is ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. But some kind of a way they absolutely make it work. Now, other thing that I think is interesting and very entertaining is the fact that no matter if it's the older generation characters or the new characters, the comedy is still there, which means that it's written well. I think that the way that they approach comedy is very natural flowing. It's based on how these characters' line delivery and the setup and the alley for them. Like the older characters, take Ray for instance, he lives and breathes like ghosts, right? And so the way he communicates is gonna be that way. But when you think about Paul Rudd's character, um, he's a teacher, and so he's just a nice guy. And so they make sure that they approach the characters to where they are with their strengths, but then they also put them in compromising situations they've never been before. And so because of that, when they're faced with opposition and they have to counter, it makes a really good smooth balance of comedy and drama. Some of the actors and some of the characters don't get as much screen time as I would have liked between everybody. And then I do think that, without going to negative territory, I do think that there are scenes that were cut from this film. Not to say that there's a big director's cut from this, but there are absolutely scenes that, are from certain trailers and certain moments that just are not in the film. And I question whether or not that was an intentional thing from a time standpoint. But I also kind of wonder, like, are there different story threads that it comes to the approach of danger in this, um, I did feel like there was this feeling that something could happen. And I like that. I think that we need to feel like we're on our toes while at the same as that time we are feeling entertained. And I think a big contribution to that is the way that they handle the VFX. The VFX and the action are some of the best that they've done in the series. Now, I do think that the approach of Afterlife, it was such uncharted territory that I didn't know what was going on. So when they had like really cool moments or characters had like new devices, it kind of felt like a rehash of back then. But because there was actual impending danger and there was a use for each of these things, I think it worked because there are certain crazy moments that they're using Ghostbuster device and elevating certain things. That's just cool. Like, I mean, those are scene stealing moments because you're just immersed into kind of where this is actually going to go. Now, the silliness is there. They absolutely still lean hard into the silliness, but I think that it does work for the thread of a certain amount that they use because again, because I'm letting you guys know this is a little serious, this is a little darker as far as horror. You may want to screen the movie first before you go in and just taking your like 12-year-old or your 10-year-old. Go and check it out first because they handled it really well. The big things that I can say that are negatives is that I feel like some of the threads, as far as certain storylines and certain characters, are just kind of just left into limbo. There are certain characters that are kind of like not necessarily left as throwaways because they're still all essential, but they don't really go into where this character is. They kind of just pop up, like what they're doing, what's going on. There are some great surprises here and there, but I never felt like all the characters were given their due, which is part of the reason why I said that Paul Rudd, his character was given quite a bit, but then certain characters around him were not. I don't want to spoil that, but I do think that that was on a negative end. And I also felt like, from a pacing standpoint, there are moments where I feel like towards the third act, like it was really actually having really interesting. But I think that they could have leaned into a tonal shift that went a little bit more darker, or either went to a different route and spaced that time out a little bit. And I know that'll push for time a little bit because the movie right now is at a good hour and 55 minutes, but I think that a good 2 hours and 25 would have made for a very interesting ride because I think they could have done a lot with that amount of time. But I did have a good time. I do think that this is a very entertaining Ghostbusters movie. And I think if you like Ghostbusters Aftermath or you enjoyed the originals, I think from an original standpoint, if you've never seen Afterlife, you're like, are my old Ghostbusters there? They are. If you looked at Afterlife and you were kind of like, I'm interested to see where these new characters are going to go. And I mean, some of us used to look at like the older, animated series like Extreme Ghostbusters and different scenarios to see where different concepts of ghostbusting look like. The lore of Ghostbusters, they definitely lean into that as well. But at its heart, I mean, there's absolute heart there. There's comedy there. And I think that the characters flow really well from what they were provided as far as the script. But I think the contribution to that is the people behind the writing and the director. I think that there's a real love for these characters and the world that they're building around it that makes you want to see more. I do think this may be a tad bit better than Afterlife, but there's something about Afterlife that I'll never forget. And I think that that's the one thing that I'll say. This is a B, yeah, B to a B minus for me. I would definitely go and watch it again. I'll definitely end up collecting the Ghostbusters packs. If they make another one, I'm there for it. If they just have the first one and the second one, I'm definitely going to get those on 4K Blu-ray. But let me know what you guys think. It is officially going to be coming out March the 22nd, this Friday. And yeah, Busted makes you feel real good. I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace, guys. Filing out the top of I can see the skyline, 50 mile radius on my timeline. Ain't nothing on my mind.